Chiezi, Zimbabwe, late March 2026. An activist stands to speak at a public hearing. He wants to oppose a new law. Before he can finish a sentence, men believed to be ruling party youths attack him. He isn't alone. Rights groups report others were abducted, some allegedly tortured, elsewhere in the country. Their crime was simple: opposing a bill that would end how Zimbabweans choose their president. The government would later claim the public overwhelmingly supported that same bill. Weeks later, that bill becomes law, signed, sealed, gazetted. And for the first time since 1987, Zimbabwean citizens will not vote for their president. Parliament will. 16 million people, zero direct say, all decided by roughly 290 lawmakers. How does a nation lose the right to elect its own leader, quietly, on paper, with almost no bullets fired? To understand that, you have to understand the man this law was built around. Emmerson Mnangagwa took power in 2017 after the military removed Robert Mugabe from 37 years of rule. They called him the Crocodile, a survivor of purges, exile, and an assassination attempt years earlier. He had been Mugabe's enforcer for decades before becoming the man who finally pushed him out. He promised a new dispensation: renewal, reform, a break from the past. 9 years later, critics say he has built something closer to the system he replaced. Zimbabwe's ruling party, ZANU-PF, has controlled parliament continuously since independence in 1980. After the 2023 election, a little-known senator recalled a wave of opposition lawmakers from their seats. Regional observers, including from the Southern African Development Community, said that election fell short of democratic standards. The opposition, already fractured, lost its ability to block anything requiring a two-thirds majority. Some of the opposition MPs who remained were left politically vulnerable, dependent on the very senator who had recalled their colleagues. By early 2026, that majority was exactly what the government needed. In February, a bill was quietly gazetted. Few outside government fully grasped what it would do. It proposed extending the president's term from 5 years to 7. It proposed pushing the next election from 2028 to 2030. It gave the president new power too, the ability to appoint 10 additional senators, growing the Senate to 90 seats. And buried inside, it proposed the biggest change of all, replacing the popular vote for president with a vote by parliament. Officials framed it as reform. Justice Minister Ziyambi argued 5-year cycles were too short and too divisive for real development. Critics framed it differently. Opposition leader Tendai Biti called it a shift of power to a small elite. Public hearings were held in all 10 provinces that spring. The government later claimed 99.4% support. A parliamentary committee report cited that figure as evidence the nation had endorsed the changes. But that figure came from a process rights groups say was marred by intimidation and, in Chiezi, outright violence. One resident said he was denied the chance to speak at all, alongside others opposed to the bill. Civic groups disputed the committee's numbers directly, arguing that only a small, favored minority had actually been heard. On June 18th, the National Assembly voted. 216 in favor, 42 opposed, comfortably past the two-thirds threshold the Constitution demanded. 6 days later, the Senate followed. 75 votes for, just 4 against. The Senate added 6 amendments of its own and sent the bill back. On June 30th, Mnangagwa recalled Parliament from recess for an extraordinary sitting. MPs were made to vote by open show of hands, not secret ballot, a method critics called subtle intimidation. The amendments passed, 226 to 41. The bill's final hurdle was gone. On July 7th, Mnangagwa signed it. The next day, it was law. Act number 6 of 2026. His current term, originally due to end in 2028, now runs until 2030 under the new 7-year cycle. A senior information ministry official announced it online in 3 blunt words: Signed, sealed, delivered. Under the new system, Parliament and Senate now sit jointly to choose the president. A candidate needs more than half of all votes cast by lawmakers to win. If nobody reaches that threshold, the top two candidates face a runoff, decided again by lawmakers, not citizens. A sitting president who wins must immediately give up their own seat in parliament. If the presidency falls vacant, a replacement must be chosen within 30 days. During that window, no law involving major policy change may be passed, a narrow safeguard, critics say, against a much bigger shift. The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, the same body that once ran national elections, will now simply administer this internal parliamentary process instead. An institution built to serve 16 million voters has effectively been repurposed to serve a room of lawmakers. Because ZANU-PF's dominance of parliament isn't new and isn't in question, it means the party doesn't just win elections, it now effectively appoints the presidency directly. There was also a quieter motive at play. Analysts point to a brewing succession battle inside ZANU-PF itself over who follows Mnangagwa. By moving the choice from voters to lawmakers, that succession fight becomes something the party can manage internally, instead of something the public decides. Human rights lawyer Doug Coltart raised a sharper warning still. He said the law's wording could let Parliament keep renewing its own mandate without ever facing voters again. We are now going to have to fight that interpretation in court, he said. Buried elsewhere in the amendment, the body created to heal wounds from Zimbabwe's post-independence conflicts was quietly dissolved. That commission had existed, at least on paper, to address decades-old grievances that still shape trust in the state today. Its peace and reconciliation duties were folded into a separate human rights commission, with a far broader, more general mandate. Critics argue a specialized body focused on historical healing carries a different weight than a general commission with dozens of other responsibilities. A separate proposal to abolish the Gender Commission was dropped after backlash, one small concession in an otherwise sweeping bill. New quotas were added for local councils, 30% of ward seats reserved for women, 10% for young people aged 18 to 35. Supporters point to these quotas as proof the amendment isn't purely about consolidating power. Reforms and centralization packaged inside the very same document. The reaction was immediate. The Zimbabwe Council of Churches called the bill morally indefensible. Former opposition MP Fadzayi Mahere called it a major setback for Zimbabwean democracy. 6 war veterans, alongside other applicants, argue the change strikes at protections meant to survive exactly this kind of maneuver. Constitutional scholars pointed to Section 328 of the Constitution, a clause meant to stop leaders from personally benefiting from term limit changes without a public referendum. War veterans, alongside other petitioners, have now taken that argument to the Constitutional Court. Their case is still pending. Zimbabwe's highest court now holds the fate of the law in its hands. A ruling could come within months, or drag on well past the very date the next presidential term would begin. Constitutional law academic Lovemore Maduku has also publicly challenged the amendment's legality. The government insists none of this required a referendum, since Parliament held the votes it needed. Justice Minister Ziambi has defended the changes as removing toxicity from politics, calling the old 5-year cycle too divisive to allow real development. Technically, the government may be right about the legal process. That's precisely what worries the law's critics most. If a change this fundamental can bypass a referendum on a technicality, few future amendments will need one either. Zoom out. And this isn't only a Zimbabwean story anymore. Constitutions across the region have been quietly rewritten before to keep leaders in office past their limits. But few have gone this far, removing the ballot for the presidency entirely, rather than simply resetting the clock. If this amendment survives its court challenge, it becomes a template, proof that ballots can be engineered out entirely, not just delayed. regional bodies built to defend democratic standards now face a direct test of whether those standards mean anything at all. International charters guaranteeing citizens the right to participate in their own government now face the same question, on paper, without an obvious enforcer. Back in Chiredzi, the activist who was assaulted at that hearing is still living in Zimbabwe. The bill he stood up against is now the law of his country. Zimbabweans who once queued for hours in every election since 1987 to cast that single vote won't queue again. The next time Zimbabweans are asked who should lead them, the question won't go to the ballot box. It will go to 290 lawmakers inside one room, deciding on behalf of 16 million people. Whether that room still answers to the people outside, it is the question Zimbabwe's courts and its citizens are only beginning to answer.